one of the things that I appreciate about like knowing like your Vedic body type and also like in the Chinese element type, you're not saying that do I just go by Chinese medicine or Vedic? But the beautiful thing is like I'm more of a woodsy element type, and I have a little bit of fire in me. I can tell I have a little bit. And so now I know my eating habits. You know what I mean? Like when you say I should not skip meals in the morning, definitely middle of the day. But like you just said, in the later in the day,
yeah, because you know what happens, and this would happen all the time when I was at Good Morning America. Like they would go send me to do an interview with like Jennifer Aniston's personal trainer or like J-Lo's personal trainer or whoever, right? Wow. Oh, this person, there was like Tom Brady. It was a guy who he would train Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen together, and like Kim and Kanye together, and like I would go interview these people, but they would also put me through a workout and things like that. It was fun.
Yeah.
But then what I realized then is that what would bother me about those is like, I'm like, okay, people are watching this at home, right? Like moms, and being like, oh, I want to look like Jennifer Aniston. I'm going to do her workout, or I'm going to take all the stuff she's taking. But Jennifer Aniston is Jennifer Aniston, and you are you.
Yeah.
And you have different body types, and what she's doing might have the opposite effect on you. So it really is like everybody needs to get like a personalized, go to somebody, figure out who you are, what works for you. You can do it yourself too.
Yeah.
Like just, being sensitive, like just how do I feel when I eat this?
Hello, friends. Dr. Motley here with the Ancient Health Podcast, and I have a very special guest. I consider him a friend already, Mr. Frank Elaridi, and he has a bio that is, I want to tell you, out of this world. So I want you to follow along and see how much this Da Vinci of a man has experienced life, and I envy how much he's done in his life. His bio reads, covering everything from Syrian refugee camps to the Academy Awards, Frank Elaridi is a 4-time Emmy Award-winning journalist working mostly for ABC Network News. He was also a contributor on Good Morning America and ABC's digital platforms, most notably giving viewers a backstage look into Dancing with the Stars. Frank is immersed in the world of biohacking and wellness, speaking at conferences and leading workshops at holistic resorts. He is also a certified energy worker and emotion code practitioner, helping clients release negative trapped emotions from the body, which can lead to healthier relationships, removal of blocks in health and career, and create space for new opportunities. His YouTube channel, 40 million views, 150,000 subscribers. Wow. It's centered around wellness and spirituality. At youtube.com, Frank Elaridi, we cover everything, or he covers everything from people who have activated their pineal gland or third eye and can still see even when completely blindfolded, to the real life Thor taking a DNA test. Wow. There you'll find Frank's journey with plant medicines, stem cell treatments, and going on adventures like the time he and his friends destroyed the things they were attached to. So I want to say thank you, friend, for coming on.
Wow.
Podcast. That is
Thank
amazing.
You. I was just over here like squeezing myself, like getting nervous because it's just so weird to hear somebody like talk about what you've done, So thank you.
Yeah, it's always, I like when we do interviews and you can tell when individuals have that form of seriously humbleness. It's like I've experienced a lot, I've accomplished a lot, but you realize that I can tell you're the eternal learner, like the eternal study person who likes to study and likes to try to find out about life. So I really am thankful. Our mutual friend, Lindsay, got us in contact with each other, and she showed me your Instagram page, and I was so impressed. And especially like when we talk about emotion work. So I have a few questions, and again, everybody out there that's listening, we just love to make this conversation just an easy breezy conversation, but we want to hear a bit about yourself. Now, I want to try to start off with not getting too many questions, but I love to hear about your journalist background.
Yeah.
Because that usually gives individual that investigative persona and characteristic. And then you're now into stem cells, plant medicine, the journey of being a journalist and knowing everybody and everybody loving you, and then turning it into seeking health. Can you give us a synopsis on that?
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. Like I was always curious, so curious, still am, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm in Nashville now anyway for a yoga retreat because I'm always just wanting to learn more and like understand more, right? Like who are we and what can we do and what's out there? So I was a journalist, and I, consider myself still a journalist, but just on my own terms. But I was a TV journalist, and in my own life, I was like going and seeing shamans to learn about plant medicines. I was getting stem cell injections. I was trying biohacking. Like I was doing everything, but it was my personal life. And then I'd go and like report on whatever they wanted me to report on. Right. And eventually I was like, I can't keep having a foot in two worlds. Like this just doesn't, it's like, I'm covering tornadoes and hurricanes and Dancing with the Stars or whatever else. And then I'm like out here in the jungle drinking this like brew, right? So I'm like, I want this to be my life. How can I make this my life full time? And it was around that time that I started to meet like different healers from different backgrounds. And they'd say, you know, you're a healer, right? And I'd be like, no, I'm a journalist. Like I was so stubborn. I'm like, no, I'm a journalist. And then eventually I was like, well, let me just try, you know? So I started to learn from different people. And I started to really make it my own. And so I would only work with like my friends, my family, but little by little, they'd be like, can you work with so-and-so? Can you work with so-and-so? So after a while, I realized I was like booking up for months in advance.
Wow.
And so I left news and just like fully pursued just working with people one-on-one, kind of like you do, but mine's all remote. Like it's all energy work. It's all over Zoom. And then, you know, building content around the things that I do. So if I go and get stem cells now, I'm like showing people the process and what it's for. And I'll interview the doctors. If I'm talking about plant medicine, I'll show people my personal journey from beginning to end, or a family member and what they went through. So yeah, I mean, there's like so much to explore in this world that I didn't want to be limited to just what I was being assigned on TV.
I think it's really great when you said my schedule filled up and it was like months in advance. And I think that the direction that you're supposed to go into usually finds you. And so you start to see things starting to develop. When you started to get into, and I'm not trying to divert from your background, but I'm saying like with the stem cells, when you started to go into stem cells and like plant medicine, what are some of the biggest things like that you knew you could help your clients with, like with stem cells? What are the main attractions you love about stem cells? Because that's a big part of your bio. Like, what do you love about stem cells and how can it help?
I used to really be into supplements, and I would take so many supplements. A closet full of supplements.
You had the whole pantry filled up, brother.
I like sometimes I'd have to take it and like, okay, these 20 now, these 10 later, these 15, because I couldn't take it all at once. And I got stem cell injections. And noticed maybe after like the second time I did it that I just naturally just stopped taking supplements. Even now, I don't really supplement. I take everything intuitively, right? Like I'll take, like we just talked about neem before the podcast started, and I'll take like neem leaves. Like I'm going to start trying that now. I'll try things. I'll incorporate it into my food or into my life, but I don't just like take supplements. I won't take like pills unless I need it intuitively. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling something. Let me take some vitamin C and oregano oil. Let me take, whatever it is. But I don't, unless it's like something that I specifically want to work on, I don't just take supplements now. And I notice I feel healthier than I ever have before. My skin, people are always like asking about my skin.
Oh, it's great.
Like,
seriously.
Right? Like all these things. I mean, thank you. I mean, I don't only say it for me. I say like it's the power of like the stem cells and living foods. Honestly, I would say the two biggest things: eating living live food, not processed, not dead food, not frozen food, just living food, like sprouts, for example, right? We talked actually about this before.
Yes.
I got into it like 6 months ago, and I'm like, I can't believe I wasn't doing this before. My whole life has changed just from eating sprouts, like not as a garnish, but like eating a full meal of sprouts.
Oh my goodness.
Like 6 different kinds, and I grow them myself now. I mean, like that and stem cells. So if you want to get like specific, there's like, and I don't actually, has nothing to do with my clients. Like with my clients, it's all energy work. But sometimes I'll suggest it, and it's really more for like my podcast and my YouTube channel where I create content that helps people, like sort of like you do. That's where I'll talk about the stem cells. But like for me specifically, I've had like my joints injected, my knees, my shoulders, my penis, my face.
Hey,
my face. I got an IV. I got my gums. Hairline. Like I've had everything basically injected, and then like each one of those things, it's something different. Like my gums, I just started to notice. They say give it 6 months, and it's true. Like in your face, organs, like joints, you start to notice it after 6 months. Like really notice it. Inflammation immediately gone, but like noticing a real strong difference, like growth, it's about like 6 months to start seeing that. But the gums was like within like 2 weeks, I could start seeing it wrap around my teeth.
Oh, I got to do that. And we got to exchange information about the individuals, because we all have a friend, and you may know him, Ben Greenfield. He does biohacking, and he went to a practitioner in Mexico that did his, and he was talking to me about like what you just stated, like not having to take as many supplements. And you guys are in good shape. Courtney, my co-host, she does a lot of stem cells, and she was telling me the other day she was looking great. Her skin was getting better. I said, "Hey, what's going on? It looks great. I'm glad. Like, stress is low." But she said the same thing you did, brother. She said, "I'm doing the stem cells, and I felt intuitively that I didn't need all these supplements," because I always tease her and I always say, "Hey, you don't need 15 pills in the day." And she always goes, "More is better." Like, no, not really, not this time.
Right.
But it's like the energy that your body could use from stem cell actually creating energy. And so Ben put me through a workout, and man, I was like, by 45 minutes, I was like, I'm going to feel this for the next 3 weeks. and then he says, and he wasn't braggadocious. He was just saying, he goes, that thing we just did. And, I was like, yeah, the workout.
It's a great impression, by the way.
He was like,
perfect.
He says, that feels like I just did a 5-minute workout. And I could tell, because he'll go 20, 30 minutes on a machine. And I love the fact that when you can get it inject in any place. So when your clients are there, when you're doing that, does it lead into the energy work? Because I want to talk about the virtual too. I don't want to leave anything out. This is such a good information, but how do you meld them together? Or do you just see like, no, this is the opportunity for me to talk to them about their emotional healing? How's it?
If I'm working with somebody, it's all about, well, not just emotions, like, and we can even do one together if you want, like live, but it'll be specifically emotions, and I'll look into, and sometimes it sounds weird, but for someone who works in Chinese medicine, probably not so much, but like certain Chinese meridians, like meridians in the body, or chakras, or even specific organs and mental beliefs. And I'll literally tell them what belief was created, what year it was created, and they'll always map, not always, but most of the time they know exactly what it was. Like I'll say, you feel abandonment, I'm not good enough, and vulnerability when you were 12. What happened? And they're like, oh, my parents got a divorce when I was 12. I thought it was my fault, Like, okay, so let's clear that. That's what's causing your eye issues right now. Like, it's so interesting how it works. But we literally just use magnets to clear whatever that block is. And the crazy thing is, well, I don't think it's crazy now that I've seen it so much and I've been doing it for so many years, and I see the like miraculous results, but they're not even in the room with me. So I'm clearing it on myself for them.
Wow.
And it's cleared.
Because he just read me, because that's what he was talking about. 12 years old. He was like, that's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You
it's
picked
so
up.
Funny. Every time I use an example, it's like
you picked up on it, like already. Like when you cleared on yourself, like because there are certain even techniques in Chinese medicine. They'll call them like Tong Ren. They'll talk about like the transposition of like energy fields. And is that how, like, when you or with somebody and you start to feel the energy, like the impression that it puts on your body, you're like, oh, they're sending that vibration out. Is that how you would say that?
I think that's what it is. Like, I don't really like, I wish I was more like intellectual, because it's hard for me to explain things,
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I'm in the same group. Like,
I'm just like learning it as I go. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I feel this. I'll say something. They're always telling me. Like one time I was like, I think you have like a carpet cleaner in allergy or something. And she's like, that's so crazy. She's like, my husband, I was telling him yesterday because he got these carpet cleaners at the house, and I told him that it was bothering me. And I'm like, yeah, they're like something. So I don't know. It's just like a feeling, it's an impression.
See, that.
But then I will say, I'm not like that accurate where I'm not like psychic or anything. So I can't just like tell somebody. So I'll muscle test everything. And that I learned from Dr. Bradley Nelson.
Yeah.
From Motion Code. So he taught me like muscle test everything.
Yeah.
Like I ask and you probably do this because chiropractors do this all the time too.
Yep.
Where they'll muscle test, or like they'll put like certain foods to your chest and like hold your hand and see if it goes weak or strong, right?
Yep.
So like variations of this, but I muscle test everything. So as I'm asking, even if I know for sure what I'm about to find, I'll be like, and I'm like, okay, is it a throat chakra? Yeah, it's throat chakra. Like if there's somebody that can't speak or they're having issues with their expression.
We got to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, like when you muscle test everything, I do quite a bit of muscle testing at the office. I think it was David Hawkins was talking about his scale of
power versus force.
And it talks about like a scale of like consciousness, in the sense that how much does a particular event or a person, a place or thing pull on your energetic field. And I I remember some of my friends would literally, I thought was very, very interesting. And you probably see this too. When you muscle test something, they would go to a restaurant or something and they weren't acting unusual. I think it's normal to me.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, on that, and they go, well, how much would that pull me up to? Like 10, 20, 30, 40. And they would go, nope. Yes. And people are looking at them. Like, to me, it's normal. Like, I'm just like, this is great. Like I can eat with my friends who do healthy stuff. And I think that when you have that, that ability, to feel the energetic fields of other individuals. Like, for instance, you're saying, like, when you say carpet cleaner, do you find like those impressions that you feel and you're like, the person like, oh my goodness, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going through. Did that start when you were young, or I want to know you're like,
when I was young, it was like sensitivity. That's what it was. So it was like, I didn't know why, but I'd be really like uncomfortable around certain people or really happy with certain people, feel safe with certain people, like we all do. Yeah. But it was like a hyper sensitivity, and it still is, right? But like I was just always hyper sensitive. And my mom would always tell me, she'd be like, you're too sensitive, you know? Yeah. Like you need it. And cause she didn't understand. She saw it as like a weakness. Whereas I think it's like a strength, you know? Because it's like, I immediately know. There's been times I walk into a room, even now, and I'm like, even if it's like a birthday party or something, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'll literally just leave. I'll leave the gift and I'll walk out. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. And I don't need to explain it to anybody either. Like, that's the thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to explain it. I don't want to be here. So I'm not going to be, you know? Like,
that must have made you a really good journalist too, because the people around you could probably pick up on the vibe.
Sure. And you know what? Like, they would always cry in my interviews. I would say that, or they'll be like, oh, I was really nervous to do this, but like, thank you. And like, they'd hug me. And, you know, you have to realize I'm doing stories with, it wasn't always like Jennifer Lopez. It'd be like, you know, and it was sometimes it was like massive A-listers. Yep. And other times it'd be like somebody who's just lost their home in a tornado, or somebody who like is a local hero because they did something, like whatever it is. Like, they're not TV people, you know what I mean? Yeah. And they also just went through something. But like, I'd always, I think, just like talk to them, let them know that like, I actually really just care about you. And I like, forget the cameras. I'm not even worried about that right now. If we get our shot, great. If we don't, I'm okay with that too. Like, are you okay? You know, like, it was like things like that. And, yeah, you know, so even like noticing, I think in those stories, I'd always look for, like, you'd see, like, let's say a mass shooting, if I was covering that, you see like the horror of what that did, but then you also see the whole community coming together and donating blood and like, you know, giving food and making sure everybody's okay. Like, that's what I always focused on. You know, I'd always be like, wow, look how beautiful like love is. And I'm from LA and I'm from a big city, and it's very easy if you're from LA or New York to be like, oh, like the, you know, flyover states. Yeah. And like, it's so like the way people talk about them is just like, oh, well, I don't know, those people in Mississippi, you know? Oh yeah. But when you're like a journalist and you're well, at least I'll speak for myself. When I was a journalist and meeting people, I just saw like, we're all the same. We all want the same things. Yeah. We're all looking for the same thing. And it's just like, when you get caught up in whether it's media or politics or whatever it is, you forget, because you just got roped into this whole like them, us, and it doesn't exist. It's not even real. It's all made up. It's based on where you live. These beliefs got created because of the people you're around, the system that you got, but it's like, it's not real.
I gotta go. That's one of those conversations. Like, I wish we even like, you can go further. It could be like a whole 2 or 3 hours, because when we talked about like you're being in certain areas and you're helping people and those individuals, and it's like you say the flyover states. Okay, so you're very sensitive with you know, doing muscle testing, and you got into the world of like you know, energy healing. And I got so many questions. I hope I give it. I hope I go. It'll flow through. But you know, when you started to learn different avenues, and you started to get more, just I say clients and friends, they see your heart, and as you started to shift from journalism, do you feel like definitely like the natural journalistic nature of who you are allows your biocomputer, I'm not trying to be fancy, internally to be able to scan certain areas around the body? Like you were talking about meridians, you were talking about chakras, you're talking about those areas of the body. And I remember you told me before we started, you're like, well, I don't know all the things about everything. And I don't either. I'm the same boat, brother. But do you find that you have more of an adeptness to understand or pick up on stuff than most people do? You have to, right? Is that
probably more than like the average person? Yeah. You know, but I don't think more than like the spiritually, like the person like really doing the work, you know? Yeah. Because it gets built. It gets built. So
you get stronger at it, like you build a muscle, right?
Yeah. And then I've noticed, not just with myself, but with documentary, like little projects that I've done on YouTube were like you mentioned the blindfold reading. Like we would literally blindfold people, even blind people, by the way, fully legally blind. We take them through this process, and I don't do it anymore, but I want to get back into it. I stopped in 2020 during the pandemic and everything shut down. So I stopped doing these retreats, but there was like a moment where I realized if you doubt or if you don't think you can do it, it goes away. And then you have to like retrain and do it. Like you always need to be positive and happy. So like when we're training somebody, we'd have them blindfolded and we, hold up, like, let's say this green book. And I'd be like, what color is the book? And they'd be like, blue. And we'd be like, cool, good. What else do you see? Keep trying. Like, what else? Like, we'd never say no. You never are like, no, it's not right. Oh, you didn't get it. Like never. It's always like, good. What else? Gold. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's gold there for sure. What else? Green. Yeah, you got it. Woo. And like constant, like celebrate. Cause then you need that encouragement,
Yes.
How many times as kids, you're like, oh, I have an imaginary friend or I have this or whatever. We're like, shut up. Oh, stop it. Like you're making things up. You're so like such a troublemaker or whatever. Yep. We don't go, oh yeah. What does the friend look like? Oh, cool. Like helping them express their imagination and explore and know that there's something there.
There has to be, because I'm with you. When you and me like could be buddies. I'm serious, because when you talked about you're too sensitive, you know what and I love them, and I'm not saying this out of harshness to my brother, my sister, but they used to always tell me that you're too sensitive, Chris. Because I would watch, there was this one Hallmark episode, and I'm not making a lot of this story. It talked about an older gentleman who had some mental handicaps. And I remember they used to play it every year. I lived in Topeka, Kansas when I was a kid. I used to cry internally so badly for that guy because I felt so bad for him. And then they weren't trying to be mean. They're like, why do you keep crying all the time? It's so, what's funny is that I shouldn't have, but over the years, I kind of walled that part off because I didn't want my brother and sister to disapprove of me. But I think I let myself, thankfully, you talk about like energetics, like, you walk into a room, I can tell, like when you see somebody, you're not trying to say, I know exactly what's going on with your world, but you go, their heart's heavy and they may have something like that going on. And I think that, over time, when you say cultivate it and strengthen it up, I'm so impressed with individuals. And I want to talk to you about the emotion code. I'm leading this because I've had some individuals, they'll just say, they'll go, oh, yeah, that person's got this, this, and this. I'm like, that is on point.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Like, people say, like, how do you do what you do? And I'm like, I think I'm just consistent, like, doing work. So with that to say, when you started to learn, like, your sensitivity, your investigating qualities, what led you to the emotion code? I know it, like, everything leads you to where you need to be. But what attracted you to this? Because people out there go, I want to know about emotion code because I'm stuck. So what drew you to that?
For me, it was, and by the way, I'll just go back to you too also, is like when you're working with people, don't you realize or don't you recognize in yourself that because you're consistent, you start to see like, oh, I recognize this. I already know where it's probably going or what this person needs.
Yep.
Right?
And that's exactly when you said, I loved it when you said you kind of feel it on yourself. It's like, I know that it's, I try to be all fancy, but I do read a lot about electrical currents and how they move through systems. But when people have like the feeling of somebody else in the room and that that's their feeling, oh, you have pressure in the back of their head, and they're going to say, oh yeah, I have headaches all the time back there. I think that if you're willing and receptive enough to where, you start to get into the field of somebody else, they resonate with your system. And the only reason you recognize it is because there may be an inkling of some of that resonance within you. Like if there's something, an emotion resonating, like, oh, your anger is creating this. And I'm like, well, I'm angry too.
You want to go so deep, like even deeper than that?
Yeah.
It gets so deep.
It just definitely.
So I started to notice, oh my God, it gets so deep. So like, okay, I was telling somebody that was on my podcast and I said, I stopped clearing unworthiness for some reason about 6 months ago. And that used to come up all the time. People would come to me, unworthy. And I'm like, and I never, like the last time I had somebody who had unworthiness that I need to clear was like 6 months ago. And she was like, you know why, right? And I was like, why? She's like, because you no longer have that in you.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, she's right. And because I would start to notice after that, there was always a theme every week. Like this week, it's like everybody who came to me had a kidney misalignment. This week, everybody who's coming to me has like problems with their, like whatever, Like it was always a theme. And I'm like, this is so interesting. I've taken the last 2 weeks off to do my yoga practice, but the last week that I had was everybody had a misalignment in their skull. Somewhere in their skull. And it was always a different reason. But I mean, like, I'm like, this is interesting. Now, that doesn't mean I have a misalignment in my skull, but like, the underlying reasons. So like,
Yes.
I don't just tell somebody you have a misalignment in your skull. I say it's in your frontal bone. It's from a physical trauma when you were 20. And they're like, oh, I hit my head when I was 20. Or a brick, well, literally a woman told me she said a brick fell and hit me in my head, in my frontal bone.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's what that was. But then sometimes it's something like there's an emotion that's stuck there, which that's when we get into the emotion code. Or there's like sometimes, a belief there, or maybe there's a misalignment in your heart. You brought up heart. My favorite thing to clear from anybody is like, especially if they come to me and they're like, I don't know what I want to work on. I heard you on a podcast or whatever, and I resonated and I just wanted to do a session. I'm like, good, let's just work on your heart. Because there's the heart, there's a wall. You brought up the word wall. There's a wall for sure. Everybody. I mean, I don't have one, but most people have a wall around their heart,
Yeah.
It's like 95% of people probably have a heart wall.
Yeah.
And it's just basically layers of defense that you put up. So like, let's say your brothers and sisters like, stop crying, whatever. You put up defensiveness. You put up this, you put up that, whatever it is. And it's just layered. So what that's doing is not only do people feel that when you walk into a room subconsciously, but also it is protecting you. So you won't get hurt as easily. Like someone does something, whatever, I don't care. Right. Like you've gotten hard, but also it's not letting beauty and love, like to where you can, I'll be walking down the street and see a tree and just be like, I need to, like, I forgot what I was doing. Like, I'm just so captivated by the beauty.
Yes.
Or I'll see, like, we're in Tennessee. I'm like seeing rodents on the street, dead animals here and there. I'm driving up here to come see you.
Great first impression. Sorry, guys.
But I'm literally like, how many people probably are like, stupid animal, like got in my way. I literally want to burst out in tears when I'm seeing it because I'm like, that's life.
Yeah.
Do you not realize like that's life?
Yes. And it tells you, like, when you say the walls that go up, it's like when you're talking about, like if somebody had kidney issues and you don't see the beauty of it, it's like I always see it as a cry for help. Like I used to get hardened towards my patients or something because, I've got to work so much to help them out. But honestly, it's like in some ways that when you see what do they say? The potential of somebody's health. It saddens you when you don't, like, I literally get saddened in my heart. It's like when you see an animal or you see something like, I can't hardly stand to see the devastation of like literally like natural beauty. Like when somebody, I hate to say it, when things are like, when you see those plastic bottles built up in the ocean.
Oh yeah.
Literally, I'm like, oh my word, I don't even want to look at those things.
For me, it's like if I see an animal like that doesn't know and gets stuck in it.
Oh yeah.
That's the part where I'm like,
I can't even handle it. And I think that when we give that sensitivity to other people, I think like you're saying about like having a particular problem in the heart. And for a while there, I was really looking and finding kidneys on most people. And
how do you do that, by the way? How do you know? What's your process of knowing?
I use a biofeedback device. It's called a resonator, and it's like a muscle test without having to do the muscle test. And I can show you some. You probably already know what we're talking about. But when I would go down to, they call them the bladder 25 or gallbladder 25 points. They're all around the kidney points, and so they needed to keep getting stimulated. And I was wondering about that, the same as you were talking about the heart. And I call it checking myself. I was like, well, my kidneys don't seem to be that off. And the kidneys usually have to do with I'm stuck, I'm fearful, I can't move forward in life. But when we see the beauty in other people, I was like, I started taking uva ursine. This is 2 or 3 months after, and I found out I had hidden kidney infection and bladder infection. I said, they were trying to help me. Wow. I was resonating with them. They were resonating with me. So they were willing enough to resonate, with me. And that in itself, it's like, tells me like, I can't fix everything. Because the people I'm working with are willing to give me the information they want me to work with.
So good.
And you know what I mean? Like that's the only deepness you can go with some individuals. That's me personally. But with this, and I'm going to take away the conversation. This is great.
I know. I keep swaying you. Sorry.
No. I just want to make sure that I want to get as much information from you as I can, my friend. Now, I was talking about when they talk about with this emotion code. And when we started to work with people, you started working with people. Do you ever use like your other work? You're talking about Vedic work and you're talking about Ayurvedic and stuff. How does that incorporate with your muscle testing too?
Not with the muscle testing, but definitely with clients for sure. Yeah. Right. Like I can't help myself. So I'll give advice a lot and like tell them what, but I'm not a doctor, so I can't give medical advice. So I have to just say, suggestions. Or like, oh, well, you know what might be good for that? Like, you should look up so-and-so, and I'll put in my little notes at the end. But yeah, like I got certified in Ayurveda with Deepak Chopra. And then I also, I'm studying currently Vedic astrology. which I know I saw your talk with Dr. Axe about astrology and how you use that with your work, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes.
So I definitely would love to talk about that. We can even do that on my podcast, which for everyone listening,
I love it. Yeah.
Dr. Motley's going to be on mine as well.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And so, yeah, I'm learning both of those things. And I'm just realizing, like with Ayurveda, for example, it's so interesting. Like, for example, I'm Pitta, right? And so for people who don't know, that's very fiery. I get hot easily. I'm like very athletic, very like, you know, the athlete type. So like I get hot, but I get overly stimulated. So I'm always needing to calm my system down, bring it down. And for me, like I was doing the intermittent fasting that everybody does. Yeah. Or I shouldn't say everybody, but you know, like in this space. And so I was like skipping breakfast and I'd eat my first meal at like lunch. So I'd be like basically wake up fasted because I've been sleeping and then not eat till like noon. That's like not the thing to do for me. For me, I'm supposed to, and I would be starving in the morning. Like, and I know myself, like I get hungry I'm always hungry. I'm never not hungry. I'm starving right now. Like, you know what I mean? I'm always hungry. And so I was like, you know, I'm going to switch it. When I learned Ayurveda, it helped me a lot because what we're supposed to do, first of all, everybody, but especially Pitta, your fire is starting to get lit in the morning. So you want to feed that fire. And it's like you basically follow the sun. As the sun is the highest, like 2 to 4 p.m. in the day, that's when the fire in your digestive system is also the strongest. So that's like when you want to eat the most. And then you're done after that. The sun starts to go down, everything. So if you're doing intermittent fasting, skip dinner, not breakfast. I think people do breakfast because it's so easy, right? It's like you just wake up, go, and then you have your lunch and your dinner. Yeah. But if you can, you know, it's better for your system to skip dinner. Wow. So that's what Ayurvedic taught me. And like, that's what I help people with, you know, if I'm giving advice that way, or like, you know, what supplements to take, or even that but I'll never just tell the person. I'll always muscle test it and then tell them, because I might say like, oh, you know, I know electrolytes are really good for hydration. Let me just tell them, but no, it might not be for that person. Or some people have an intolerance to bananas. So instead of just suggesting, I'll say, I'll muscle test. And actually a lot of my clients that are long-term, like that come to me once a month or something, they know now, like if they're a package client, they'll know, like they'll save like 5 minutes of the last part of the session to just ask me questions like, hey, this is a list of things I should be doing, yes or no. And it's so funny because sometimes they're testing me and sometimes they're like, they really want to know, but sometimes they just start laughing at the end. I'm like, why are you laughing? They're like, everything you said no to is stuff that I'm intolerant to or shouldn't be taking. I'm like, why would you waste like time trying to test me, you know?
They do that though.
They do that. Yeah.
they're like, oh, my test I shouldn't have sesame seeds.
Yeah.
Like, why did you ask me?
Why did you ask me? Like, I just wanted to know if you knew that.
And I think they're like, when you talk about like how impressed people are when you can use muscle testing, and most individuals, like when they ask me about like the specific pathways of muscle testing. I have a really good teacher, Chris Astle-Smith. I need to send it to you. He talks about the pathways in the body neurologically that goes into your system through your like literally pineal and pituitary system, and even through light, the effects of light on your optic. When you look at somebody, how that can actually change your muscle test to differentiate between what may be good or bad for somebody. But that is that'd be a conversation for people out there to be like, okay, you guys are losing but I'm going to send you that. Yeah. Because
thank you.
When you're talking about the Vedic body types, that's where, you know, we listen on social media where people will say, hey, everybody should do intermittent fasting. Everybody should do this. And the beautiful thing is, with the body type, even certain times of the year, because the fire is hotter in some areas of your digestive system at this time of day, and it stands true for your body type. And then you may shift to wintertime and your body's like, okay, your fire may be a little bit lower at this time, so you need to get more rest at this time. And I think that it's, to me, one of the most ingenious and beautiful systems that ancient health that you can look into, like burning up your fuel. Like, I'm a thin guy. My dad's a big, thicker guy. And when you say always hungry, like I've tried, you know, different things, like I should eat more and more in the morning, and it helps me out a lot more. And one of the things that I appreciate about like knowing like your Vedic body type, and also like in the Chinese element type, you're not saying that do I just go by Chinese medicine or Vedic? But the beautiful thing is like I'm more of a woodsy element type. And I have a little bit of fire in me. You know, I can tell I have a little bit. And so now I know my eating habits. You know what I mean? Like when you say, I should not skip meals in the morning, definitely meal a day. But like you just said, in the later in the day,
Yeah, because you know what happens, and this would happen all the time when I was at Good Morning America. Like they would go send me to do an interview with like Jennifer Aniston's personal trainer or like J-Lo's personal trainer or whoever, right? Oh, this person, there was like Tom Brady. It was a guy who he would train Tom Brady and Giselle Bundchen together, and like Kim and Kanye together, and like I would go interview these people, but they would also put me through a workout and things like that. It was fun.
Yeah,
but then what I realized then is that. What would bother me about those is like, I'm like, okay, people are watching this at home, right? Like moms and being like, oh, I want to look like Jennifer Aniston. I'm going to do her workout or I'm going to take all the stuff she's taking. But Jennifer Aniston is Jennifer Aniston and you are you.
Yeah.
And you have different body types and what she's doing might have the opposite effect on you. So it really is like everybody needs to get like a personalized, go to somebody, figure out who you are, what works for you. You can do it yourself too.
Yeah.
Like just, being sensitive, like just how do I feel when I eat this? And then the problem is like a lot of people too, they know, right?
Yeah.
Like I know it doesn't sit well with me, but I don't care. It tastes good. But it's like discipline also.
It is. When you talked about like being the fire element, like one of the biggest things that I found with clients too, for people like they're listening, like, yeah, I'm always hungry and I always need something because I'm athletic. And I was reading like Ayurvedic and with some of the practitioners that I like to study, they would say that like wheat gluten is harder on the body. And people like, I love the energy aspect of the body typing because if I ate personally a lot of gluten or wheat products, they'll say, the reports say, okay, gluten has a molecular similarities to some of your thyroid tissue and it sticks to your thyroid, then you get autoimmune. I understand that. But I always tell people, it's like, remember the organ that dominates your body type. Thyroid's pushing our bodies to burn fuel all day. It's like, you want to nourish that organ. And we're not saying that all foods are bad. I'm just saying like when people come in and they're a big, strong guy and they're probably driven by their adrenals. I'm not going to suggest food, which is what Ayurvedic says, don't eat these foods because it could diminish the strength of your vital organs. And so I tell people, I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm saying just don't eat these at least for 4 weeks. See what happens. And usually they're like, yeah, I gave up white potatoes. And I hate to say it really helps me feel better.
Yeah.
Because of nightshade quality.
It's cool that you talk to them that way. I'm sure they appreciate that. You're not like a doctor, like being like, you should do this.
Oh, that horrible bedside manners when somebody says, you better not do that. And I always found that you just allow a person with their journey. You're not there. So,
well, like, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, listen. I was
going to say, like, wheat is an interesting one because I'm intolerant to it. Like, if I have wheat, I'll have cystic acne. Yeah. Like, really bad cystic acne. And in weird places, it wouldn't just be like it'd be like on my neck or like whatever, some weird place. And I'd had it for years. And all the doctors were like, you're not allergic to anything. And I'm like, okay. And they wanted me to take Accutane. I'm like, but I'm pretty sure like that I'm allergic to something. So I went and got a food intolerance test. We're talking like 8-9 years ago. This was not like a mainstream thing. And it was like wheat was on there, eggs and pork, right? And sesame seeds. So I stopped eating those things. But the thing is like all the cystic acne went away. My whole point of saying this though is like, it was so hard for me because I loved like bread and butter was my favorite thing. Like just bread and butter. It was like a comfort food. Yeah. And I'd go like to France all the time to the Cannes Film Festival and things like that. And I'm like watching everybody eat the bread, it's like not easy. Everyone's walking around eating a baguette, but knowing what it's going to do to me made it so easy. Yes. And like you can find the gluten-free bread. You can find, there's some bakeries now, especially that have like whatever it is that you need, they'll make it. It's somewhere. You know what I mean? Now, yeah. Like, there's gluten-free bread. There's some places in LA where it's like, there's no way this is gluten-free. Like, I'm like, what? It's like olive oil bread or almond bread, whatever it is. Oh man. But so like my point is just like, yes, it's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard or whatever, but you do it and then it's not hard anymore. Yeah. After, like you said, you tell them to do it for 4 weeks and see how they feel. After like 6 months, I had zero cravings for any of the stuff that I gave up.
Oh, it was hardest for me too, brother. Like when I had Lyme infections really bad, like I didn't really do a lot of dairy.
By the way, are you Lyme infections in other people or for you?
For me.
Do you still have it?
No, it's like you cured it? I've done, with the methylation and with like working on the liver and just doing like frequency medicine and natural health.
Beautiful. Yeah. When you're on mine, we're going to talk about that.
We'll talk about it.
Lyme down is the question.
Yeah. It's really amazing to where when you do give up some things, you would honestly think that there's no way that I can give this up. And then like, I did give up a lot of things. I gave up coffee for 2 years, but when I got better, my CYP genes, they say, were activated properly and I could take in coffee. But, with that though, like when somebody's, talking to us about like foods they need to give up and you have this dependency and this emotional tie, are you finding too that as you're going through your session, and I want you to describe like your sessions and such, but
we should do one.
Well, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Let's, and I want people to see, but, when you're leading into that, you can start to see the emotional ties, like not only like, to people or a place or thing, but also like to food. Cause I think people like they mimic like their life. They literally, do you ever find that it was like, I need to have a cheeseburger.
Right. It's a habit.
It's a habit.
It's just habit.
And it's just like your brain, parts of your brain probably are activated with that morphine effect as much as you have been told that you need this person who may not be the best thing for you in your life. And they say the same areas of the brain light up. And I'm like, you got to break that addiction and you got to break that addiction. So
and we all have it, right? Like
we all have it.
I have it with certain things. I don't have it with food at all. I'm like military with my food.
Yeah.
But like, there's just like, it's a shamanic, I don't even know. It's kind of like snuff, or whatever, like tobacco, but with herbs that are mixed with it. Like it'll be like, depending on what you get, you can get it with mint, you can get it with cacao, you can get whatever, but they're mixed. It's aged tobacco leaves. And they're in these barrels with like, let's say mint or whatever, cacao, like liquid cacao.
Yeah.
Then they take it out, they dry it, crush it, dry it again, crush it. So it becomes like less than baby powder. I mean, it's like very, very fine. And then you basically put it in this little applicator and you blow it up your nose. But what happens is you get so centered. There's different ones. All of them will center you, but some of them are good for like if you have inflammation in the body. Some are good for if you want to just be more clear for the day. They all do different things. There's hundreds of them.
Definitely.
And it's called hape. Well, that became habitual for me. So it's kind of like what you're describing, where I was like realizing just first thing I wake up in the morning, do it. And then I'm like, before a client, like before meditation, do it. Before bed, do it. And I was like, I'm just doing it because I have it in my head. Okay, do it before you go to bed, do it before a client, do it before meditating, do it at home, as soon as you wake up. And I was like, but do I actually want to do it right now? Or am I just doing it because it's habitual?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I had to catch that. So we all have it, whether it's coffee or whatever, just like catch it. Like, do I actually want this right now? Or am I just doing it because like I've trained my brain to do that?
Oh, I think it's like the way that our bodies would say, like if you ate certain foods that hurt your gallbladder and your gallbladder got removed. And people still have the same symptoms of gallbladder, even though they got it removed. I was like, why? Because it's the program. It's the training. It's like you'll still eat the same food and initiate the same type of responses. And in my opinion, and I think that once we start to find those habits, I think that's the biggest basis for emotional healing. It's like, like I don't know how you operate within the emotional work, but the one thing I always try to reiterate to my patients, I'm like, okay, I know I can help you with this part, but it is recognition. I just want your body to recognize when you go into a situation where you feel like you're being controlled or when you feel like somebody is lording over you. I said, if you can go, wait a minute, it's happening right now. Then we know we're breaking ground because, most of the time you're just like, I'm so used to it.
I noticed that with like clients, if I clear some emotions and things, like let's say, I actually had one recently, a woman, and she's like, I can't be around my ex-husband. And she's like, every time he comes to pick up the kids, like my body temperature, like we get into a fight every time,
Yeah.
We cleared it. And she messaged me like, I was like a month later, I forgot I even done it. And she's like, I just want to let you know, every time he comes over, it's cordial, it's nice. She said we threw a mutual, together, we threw a party for one of our kids. Everybody was getting along. It was beautiful. And she's like, I noticed that he would do certain things that normally would have triggered me. And I'm just like, I feel nothing. Like I feel nothing. And that's what it is, right? Yep. It's like, you can do that yourself too. It's a lot harder. You can come to someone like me and we'll clear it. Or you can also just in your own self be like, I'm just going to not feel that, or recognize it and know that you're doing it. Cause sometimes half the time is just being aware of it. And it goes away.
Yes.
You don't have to do anything. You're just, okay, I'm aware of it. I caught it.
That's it. And I think it's when you're not aware, or if you stuff it away, that then you're trying to initiate in your body, like, how can I create enough energy to handle and captivate this problem? When the greatest sages of our time said, hey, if you look at it and recognize and let it pass through you, you learn the lesson from it, and you actually are giving your nervous system permission to actually go back into parasympathetic. It's like, okay, I learned the lesson. And I think even when things come at a person, like when you say, do you recognize, like when an ex-husband comes into play, it's like, yes, it hurts you. But I think when they recognize like holding on is creating more of an energy drain than anything else. Like, and when they start to see how much energy drained out of their body, they're like, I can't do that. Like literally, you ever get to the point, brother, where you're like, you go home and you go, I'm so tired, I can't even worry about that.
Yeah.
I think that's how you should approach people like that are really hard to. It's like, my body doesn't need to take the energy to actually handle that right now.
Yeah. I get that with like YouTube comments. Sometimes I'm like, God, I know the perfect response. If it's like a mean comment, which is very rare. Luckily on my channel, it's like pretty rare.
Yeah.
But like I'll get one. Like I got one yesterday and somebody was like, why do you look like that? And I remember being like, look like what? I mean, like, can you be specific?
Yeah.
But I had like such the perfect thing to say back. And I was just like, I'm just not going to.
Oh,
you know?
man.
But like that takes a lot of, especially when you know what to say. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly what to say, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, and it takes a lot to just be like, but I'm not going to.
Oh, the control aspect
it's
of it.
more powerful, you know?
It is. It's like, they always say like even in German new medicine or Chinese medicine, like if somebody's going to control you, your best response is like, I've had people control me and my gallbladder has to kick into gear to like create energy. I'm like, and I literally think this how I think. I'm like,
wow.
My gallbladder doesn't have the energy to do that today. I'm just going to let that pass because it's going to make me feel bad later. So
I want to do this like thing with you, the resonance thing.
I'll show you some. It'd be really good.
Amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not trying to get you to do like, I would work. I'm just saying like,
we can do it though. We want to do it now. I love doing it.
I like, yeah, we can. I want people to,
in fact, in the intro, when you were like, when you said the word envious, and in my head, I said, I can clear that.
because like when individuals, when they watch, I want them, they're going to say, hey, I really would love to, what, Frank is about and what this means, like about doing emotional clearing and such.
I would love that.
And, and everybody out there, I'm not trying to get Frank to work on his days where he's traveling and such. He just came back from a yoga retreat, so he's really doing really well. But but it's for people out there to realize like the healing aspect of emotional healing and like the spiritual journey where and I'm not trying to take away from Frank's podcast, but we'll have a podcast so I'll be on his. Yeah. But I think, whenever you're starting to see that the amount that emotions lay down a lot of programming wiring, and it's not like you have to be ashamed or embarrassed of your emotional programming, just like, yeah, I am wired that way.
But it could also be cool for people to see, like, for example, I had on my YouTube channel, I had an astrologer.
Yeah.
And she did a session for me right then and there. We did 2 episodes. We did a bonus one where she just read my chart. And I was like, are people going to be interested? Because it's my chart, it has nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. But that got more views than the one that was just like the interview, right? Because I think people, they'll want to know like, oh, what does Dr. Motley like have? And then they can kind of relate it to themselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I love it.
It's kind of nice. Yeah, I don't mind doing it. So I have a few different charts that I use. So you'll see me looking down, and this is part of the muscle testing part.
Yep.
These I created myself. So a lot of times people would start asking me like, well, what practice should I do to maintain this? Like I come to you once a month or once a year or whatever. Like, is there anything I can do at home? And so like I started creating charts also of just different practices and different affirmations or mantras or whatever that people can do. And I'll just, ask their subconscious what would be best for them.
I just like, I'm going to write this down so I know.
Yeah. And just so like, I always write down everything and I like send it to the client after with like very detailed of everything. But since we're recording this, I'm just going to not. And is there anything specific that you want to work on? Yeah,
I would think that, like when you say, I would say, I don't know, it's an unworthiness, or could we
also could be an area of life. So like people sometimes will say around my work or my podcast even, or they'll say my relationship or something physical, like anything.
I would say like really it's around, one of them is work, and people like, I'm not complaining about work, but it's like I've used work as like a little bit of workaholic, aspect of it. It's like worthiness. Like, I try to prove quite a bit, like just by how much I try to put out with social media or just with patients. So maybe that could be something like just how I approach work. Like, cause it's even some of my friends have said it could be a little unhealthy as much as I push myself.
Okay. Yeah. I would love to work on that. It's a good intention. See, I love that. It's a good intention. It's really important that the person, like, even if somebody wants to gift a session to someone, I'm always like, please don't, unless the person really wants it and they understand what this is. And that they know what they want to work on and they actually want to clear it. You're not just like, hey, you need this.
Yeah.
Because I need that person's subconscious to be open and wanting it, So I'll literally tell people like, please don't. Like, let them, if they want it, they can find, you can send my website, they can book it, but like they need to do that so that they feel like invested in it.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's like when somebody says, can I bring my husband?
Right.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like, because he needs to come if he wants to come on his own, because it's going to be one of those things where it's like, prove to me that you can actually help me or something. And I'm like, I don't have time for that.
It's always the husband.
It's always
one guy. He came to me. I've told the story before. Sorry, this will be quick. And he was like, his wife wanted him to do it. I remember halfway through the session, he's like, did my wife tell you all this? And I'm like, no, she told me nothing about you. I was just getting everything. And then he goes, I said, you have too much blueberry. I didn't say that. I said, you have too much ascorbic acid in your system. And we were clearing around his marriage. And he was like, what does that have to do with my marriage? I was like, I don't know, because I don't understand medicine. So I don't know what is creating what imbalance in your body.
Yep.
Maybe it makes you angry and that's part of the marriage issues. I don't know, but you have too much ascorbic acid in your body. And he goes, well, tell me where it's from. And I go, blueberries. And he just started laughing. He's like, I eat a case of blueberries every single day. And he's like,
wow. Dude, I love this.
It's so funny because like the reason I say that too is because like we might clear something now where you're like, what does that have to do with me being a workaholic? I don't know what's going on in your subconscious. Somehow it's related.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm ready to, yes.
How old are you, by the way? Do you mind sharing?
45.
45. Okay. Because for each of these, I'm going to get an age as well of when it happened.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I set the intention to connect with Chris for the remainder of the session. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because the subconscious will direct me. Okay, good. I might let it test for Dr. Motley. Good. Okay, is there anything that we can clear around this? Energetic, post-traumatic, mental. So will to, broadcast message. Okay, so this is good. This is actually something that I did learn from Dr. Bradley Nelson, which is called the broadcast message. Mm-hmm. And we're all putting out these little subconscious messages. Mm-hmm. Most of them are positive. I'm only looking for the negative ones. So there's some kind of broadcast that you're putting out, like a radio tower.
Yep.
With this work stuff.
Yeah. Like I'm literally like, that's what I love about it. It's like when you do a muscle test, it's like I am emitting, and it's like your system can pick up on it, and he can use his own nervous system to pick up on it.
Yeah.
Doing a muscle test. This is so good.
Okay. Force me. It's an interesting, I don't know how it relates. It's force me. It's force me. So like actually putting out the message, hey, force me from before the age of 40, 35. And it's from when you were 38.
30. Oh, okay. Get this.
Okay.
So I'm 45 now and it's 2000. Okay. So that's about 7 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So that was about 38. And in 2017, I ruptured my stomach and almost died.
Wow.
And when there's an area of my stomach that had, even though I was taking all the supplements and stuff, I went to the hospital real quickly and they said, if you don't get this surgery done, but they didn't even know what it was,
right, you're
going to die. And my sister came in one time and she said, you know what? It's family and everything is really wearing on you. But this is the thing. In my head, it was like, God, not in a mean, is like forcing you to realize your body had to be forced into something to like make you realize how much of attachment you had to something. That's my opinion.
Wow.
That's my opinion. Yeah. So this is awesome.
And it is that. It goes strong. So there's something around that.
Wow.
And then the next thing is that there's a misalignment in your solar plexus. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that. Sacral chakra, which is all creativity. It's all creation, which is literally what you do.
Yep.
Because your work is your creation. Oh. But there's an underlying imbalance that's causing the sacral to be misaligned. And one of them is an emotion.
This is great because
and it's feeling like your effort is not being received.
Wow. Yeah.
Like I'm doing all this work, and I don't feel like it's being received.
There has been something like even because we put a lot of content out, it's not that I don't think people are mean but I just feel like, am I saying something that's being received to the point where people actually, is it good enough for people to receive and to understand?
Like, are they getting something from this?
Yeah, exactly.
And we clear that. Is there still a misalignment in the sacral chakra? Okay. It's energetic. Is it an emotion? No, it's not even an emotion, but it is something. Is it energetic?
This is good because, and I'm not trying to talk about, but I was reading.
Explain it though. Yeah.
There's a really great book called "The Invisible Rainbow" by a Chinese professor, and he was talking about just exactly what Frank's doing now. And he said that when your body's a radio tower and you're putting out quite a bit of frequency and tone, like if somebody can take that frequency, let's say it's a wavelength, if you guys could, if you're watching, if in music, they call it the out of phase. If you can catch that frequency and you can invert the wave, you'll cancel the signals. And what he says is like recognition. He was like saying that one of the biggest things that people can create the out of phase is just the recognition of the frequency that's causing the biggest distress.
And the next thing I cleared is the hypnotic suggestion, like the programming that you have. So this is a belief that was created, but from something that made you believe this. It's never enough, or I'm never enough. And it's from age 44.
44.
Yeah.
Yes. And that would be, man, you're hitting nail on the head, because there has been family relationship things going on in life. And also too with work, because everybody thinks I'm not just on Instagram. I work on patients all the time, every day.
An actual doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. It's when you say never enough, it's like, there's times when you get programmed to that, where you're like, am I doing enough? Because you walk with people through their journey, and you do, a lot of people get better. Some people don't, but you're always holding yourself to that standard. And that's right.
Were you in a relationship at age 40?
Starting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because a cord was created at age 40.
Yeah.
So I just cleared that.
Yep.
So the cords are always created in the beginning or the end.
Wow.
Always. Sometimes they're in the middle. If I don't know, somebody loses their job and they become really dependent. It's a codependency is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a codependency between you and this person, and it started when you were 40, but that cord is still there. So I just cleared it. Wow. And that's part of why the sacral chakra is misaligned.
Oh, man. See, you already got me moving.
I felt
my chi is moving.
Yeah, I heard it.
What?
His stomach swelled.
Yeah.
Okay, there's still a misalignment in the sacral. Is associated melt energetic. And we can end it on when I finish the sacral misalignment just for time.
Yep.
But post-traumatic. I mean, I don't mind. I'll keep going. Offensive.
I love when we muscle test, because like when I go and do muscle tests, when Frank's doing, like, I love the way, because when you get trained up well enough, you think, oh, what is he pulling? I'm like, you will know when you do it and your hands break, you go, oh, that's easy. You're like, yeah, that's not happening. And you just learn to know how to train. My mentor told me, he says, it's not like people think they can just do it all. He goes, you have to train your body, your nervous system to know how to test. And my mentor is a very, very smart guy.
It's so true. And it's like, and I go really hard. I don't need to, but like, I like to know for sure.
Yeah.
But immediately that it's not you.
Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
So there's another hypnotic belief, and it's, I'm not important before the age of 40, after 40, 41, 42, 40, 43.
43.
This, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that the aftermath of like, some of these things coming up to fruition, like, is starting to sort of open up, like what I'm feeling now. You know what I mean? Like over the couple of years, it's like now I'm starting to really see that emotion is coming to the surface.
I'm glad you said
I can tell he's doing work on, because I'm starting to get hungry.
Really?
That's exactly, yeah.
And it's just so people know too, I'm not just identifying these, we're clearing it. So it's gone. It's gone. It's not there anymore. It's just gone.
That's right.
Your sacral chakra is clear now, but I just want to clear one more emotion, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay, I asked, can I clear the biggest emotion that's affecting you around this? And it's insecurity. And insecurity doesn't always mean low self-esteem. People think that's a whole nother one. I could find low self-esteem. That's not what came up. It's insecurity, which is not feeling safe, secure, like you have what you need, like you got it. That's that kind of feeling.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, and it's after 40 too. 40,
yeah,
41,
because it's like always having to take responsibility for a lot of things.
45.
Yeah,
this is current. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. My mom, she had stroke and such, but I've always taken care of my mom. And it really hit hard after she had her second. It's just like, for me, it's just I'm the person that's taking care of, so it really hits. But you can tell, like, whenever you're hitting those things, like there's one good thing I want to tell people here when he's doing, like, he'll say, I cleared it out. And people would say that with me, like when doing resident work and like doing muscle testing. But one of the things I'll say is, like, there was this one aspect in the book that I was reading about, they did experiments about how the currents in this tissue were carrying wavelengths, like they was carrying static currents. And they said the same thing was happening, like, out in thermal imagery and body, like the biofield. And they said that when you find a wave of, like, an emotion coming from the body, the way that they can interrupt that connectivity of the emotion or that wavelength within your body is to take something and put it at the very highest crest of the wave. to interrupt it at the very crest, not the trough, but at the crest. And they say an acupuncture needle, acupressure, a thought. They say they were finding that people have their intention towards it. A light, a laser would interrupt that wavelength and it would break it. Because it couldn't,
what about magnets? Did they mention
magnets? Totally did it too.
That's what I'm using. Magnets.
Yeah, totally would do it because it would interrupt the field. And it would say, like they say, oh, it's just getting at the high crest. So when people are like, when you're around people, and I'm not trying to take away, I know we're getting close to time, but when you're working with people, it's like you're trying to find your body's naturally find the wavelength, and you can interrupt those that wavelength, and you can cut those.
And what's amazing is, like you said, that you felt it in your stomach, and that happens all the time. I'll be working with people and they're like, God, I feel lightheaded. Or I've had people like turn the Zoom camera off and they just lay down while I continue to work because they're like, I don't know what's going on. I worked on actually a senator like 2 weeks ago, and like it's so funny because people would never know. Like there are senators. I've had a former first lady come to me, not from the US, another country, but like there's a senator that I worked on last week, and he literally, his wife messaged me the next day and was like, he was knocked out. He couldn't do his work the rest of the day. He was just like laying down.
Man.
Yeah.
I just want everybody out there when he's doing the magnet work. I know you know these guys, but like some of my friends would do like the magnet gurus of like in Mexico. There's like
yes, that's where I learned. That's one of my teachers was in Mexico City. These are from her.
His teacher is the person to go to because my friend would do work on me after I had Lyme with magnets.
Wow.
And he would put magnets in certain areas and tape them. And I'm telling you, I'd be walking around like a zombie because I could feel it was heat. Like I was like, oh man, there's like a current going through my leg right now. And he put it through my abdomen to clear my liver.
I've never worked on anybody with Lyme. You might know this, but I've worked on a lot of people with Hashimoto. I don't know if it's similar or not, but like a lot of them, if not all, have told me that their doctor has put them on the lowest possible dose of medicine and they were on the highest. And I think that's like a safety thing where the doctor's like, let's just keep you on something.
Yep.
You know, because they don't want to
because they don't get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And I get that. But also I'm like, that's pretty cool. But I don't think I've ever worked on anyone with Lyme. So I want to talk to you about that on my show.
We'll do it. I mean, we got to do like a part 2. I know you have to be like, we'll do it. And I'll talk to Lindsay about that. So man, this was a great
brother. I'm so excited. I knew it was going to be good. I knew it.
It was good.
And just so people know, I was like, Lindsay was like, can you do April 1st? And I'm like, I can't. Sorry, I'm in Nashville that day. And they're like, they're in Nashville. I was like, oh, perfect.
when she told me that, I was like, well, we're going to set it up. And I was like, awesome. You can tell you like a good soul. And so I'm just so thankful. So, okay, as we wrap up, tell everybody where they can find you on YouTube and Instagram and tell them about your work, your written work, and what they can do to get to it.
Yeah, so I think my name's a little hard for most people, but it's Frank Elaridi. So if it's somewhere, you can just find that. But it's youtube.com/Frank Elaridi. Mm-hmm. And then on Instagram, I'm probably the only Frank Elaridi. Well, the only verified one. Right? Yeah. And then it's F Elaridi is the actual handle. And I do read like most of my messages. But if they want to book a session, the website's the best way, frankelaridi.com. And there's, you can find all this stuff. The journalism is there, but there's a section specifically for energy work.
Oh man, I'm telling you, this was a really good talk, and I'm just so thankful, man. It's like talking to somebody like kindred spirits, like we can talk about, I always think in frequency medicine and it's like, you can agree with things or you may not agree. It doesn't matter. It's just really good to have somebody you can talk to about it.
Totally.
So it's really good.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, okay. So everybody check out Frank's work. And from all of us here, we're so thankful to have him here. Check out his Instagram page and his YouTube. From everybody here at the Ancient Health Podcast, I'm Dr. Chris Motley. Until next time we do a part 2 with Frank, I hope you guys have a blessed day. Take it easy. Talk soon.